And for more on the Israel-Hamas ceasefire, we're now joined by Professor Swikani Ncube from the University of Johannesburg, and he joins us now via our video link. Professor, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. Now, I mean, a number of people around the world were on edge today to see if whether the ceasefire will indeed, come into effect. And now that we have finally seen it, take shape, what do you make of the fact that we find ourselves here, that the ceasefire that a number of people have been calling on has finally taken effect?
Good evening, Bali, and good evening to the viewers as well. I think the first question that everybody has to ask is, why did it take this long? Because from the onset, it was clear, every commentator, every military aspect said a military victory was not going to come Israel's way. And here we are, 15 months later, we have a negotiated settlement. At least we're on the path to a negotiated settlement. And you ask yourself, why did it take this long? And there is no other conclusion other than that this was simply a war of retribution. Israel did not believe that they would achieve military objectives. They just wanted to punish the Palestinians.
Yeah, and maybe, looking at what transpired today, and, during the week, we saw the announcement of the ceasefire by those who brokered the deal. And at the same time, the ceasefire was meant to come into effect at around 8 a.m. this morning, but there were delays, and it was really touch and go at some point where many were questioning whether indeed, we will see this ceasefire taking place. But also at the same time, just before the ceasefire taking place, we also then continue to see a bombardment take place. Maybe, just take us through that just before we saw the ceasefire coming into effect at around 11, this morning, and also then seeing a bombardment.
Well, the report suggested that the Israelis were waiting for a list of the hostages or names of hostages that were to be released by Hamas. And my interpretation of the bombardment leading up to the kicking in of the deal is that the Israelis were simply taking a posture, or rather sending a message that, listen, we have one foot in, but our barrels, our guns, our bombs are pointed in your direction. If anything does not go as planned or as agreed, will simply resume with the bombardment. So for me, that was just a posturing to show that we are prepared to continue with the military action that we've been undertaking for the past 15 months.
And now that we finally see the ceasefire in effect, we understand it will take place in 3 phases, and we are now on stage 1 of these 3 phases. And a number of people are asking, what will it take, for us to see this deal holding?
It depends on one's interpretation of the deal holding, really, because I think we find ourselves in the same position that we were in after the war of, say, 2014, because what we need between the Israelis and the Palestinians is a permanent solution. And that solution is not going to come from military confrontation. Until and unless the Palestinians have a state of their own, and the Israelis, on the other hand, also assured of their security, then these sporadic fights and wars will continue. And my interpretation really at this point in time is that this is just a break in the fighting. It may be next week, next month, next year, or in the next 5 years. But we are certainly going to see another Israeli-Hamas or Palestinian fight if there is no permanent solution that is perhaps premised even on a two-state solution.
And it also then brings me to some of the comments in which we heard there from, the Israeli officials also saying that, well, stage 2 is not automatic in this regard. And one would also ask then, what guarantees, if any, do we have that we will see stage 2 of the ceasefire deal?
Precisely, and that question is really what is on everybody's mind at this point in time. What guarantees do we have that we're going to move to stage 2, to stage 3, and so forth? And when you listen to the Americans particularly speaking, you get the sense that they really are not equipped to be a player in this, at least on the negotiating table, because the language that they adopt, they paint Hamas and the Palestinians as animals, as terrorists, and yet they are supposedly negotiators to try and bring peace between the two parties. So it worries me that there's no guarantee that we're going to move to stage 2 and thereafter stage 3. But I guess the best that we can do is just hope that we're going to move to those 2 stages.
And what do you make of, the ceasefire deal being brokered just before, or rather on the eve of, the presidency of Donald Trump in the U.S.?
I guess it's an issue of legacy. Every president, every leader wants to take credit for certain good things happening to their state or internationally. And I take it for the Biden administration, that is what they also wanted to achieve before they leave office. And if you listen to President Biden earlier today, he said this deal was on the table as early as last year, May. And this brings me to the first question that I posed. Why did it take us this long to get to this point? And for Trump, he has already been saying without the hostages, there's going to be trouble for the Palestinians. And his posture and his message is one of non-compromise. So I guess for the Biden administration, they just wanted to take credit for it.
And coming back to the people of Palestine, what will it take for them to rebuild? They have lost so much in this war, or so much rather has been lost, even, for people in Israel. What will it take for them to begin to pick up the pieces and to rebuild their lives?
That has been the case previously. After every confrontation, after every war, the international community comes together to direct aid their way so that they can rebuild the Gaza Strip. And one asks, for how long will this carry on? And to what benefit if they're going to, for instance, rebuild their homes, schools, hospitals, mosques, and then thereafter there's another bombardment. So it's not even an issue of international law, Mbali, and I say that as an international law scholar. It has moved into the realm of politics and international relations, because what we need now are mature international leaders that are going to say, what is it that we need to ensure that there is no confrontation, at least militarily, between the two parties for the next 70 years. And that is not going to come through guns and bombs.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for your time and for that insight. That is Professor Swikani Ncube from the University of Johannesburg, just giving us his insight there when it comes to that developing story coming out of Gaza. Of course, seeing that a ceasefire officially take effect today, taking effect at around 11 a.m.